Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to Sleevore, where stories whisper you into gentle dreams. Tonight, we follow Santa in a journey unlike any before, a journey through the wonders and the subtle sorrows of modern Christmas. As the world changes with lights, screens, and endless technology, even the oldest traditions feel different. Santa himself is discovering the surprises of this new era, the beauty, the loneliness, and the quiet magic hidden beneath all the digital glow. In the next hour, we'll explore 10 tales, some filled with laughter, some with reflection, all with the warmth of winter and the spirit of giving. Each story is a small piece of Santa's heart, and perhaps a little piece of yours too. So, snuggle in, breathe deeply, and let the night carry you softly. Welcome to Santa's Modern Christmas, a journey through magic and memory.
As Santa's sleigh drifted through the quiet night, the world below looked strange and endless. There was no smoke rising from rooftops anymore, no scent of burning wood or gingerbread. The sky reflected a sea of tiny lights, not from stars, but from screens. Santa sighed softly. "Times change," he murmured, pulling his red cloak tighter. But Christmas still calls. The sleigh touched down on a rooftop made of glass and steel. It was cold, polished, and silent, too perfect, too still. There was no chimney waiting, only a small blinking panel beside a metal door. Santa brushed the snow from his gloves, puzzled. No chimney, no fire. How does one deliver magic now? He took out his old list, edges worn from centuries of use. The first name glowed faintly. The Roberts family, Smart Access Home. Beneath it, a printed code shimmered. Santa chuckled to himself. Ah, even wishes have gone digital. He scanned the code with the tip of his gloved finger. A soft voice answered from nowhere. "Welcome, Santa. Please confirm your identity." He laughed, a low, warm sound that filled the frozen air. "Identity confirmed. The same one since the beginning," he said, amused. The door opened with a faint chime, releasing a wave of warm, artificial air. Inside, the apartment glowed blue and white. Everything was sleek, smooth, and spotless. The air smelled faintly of pine, but he soon noticed the scent came from a diffuser labeled Winter Forest 3.2. A robotic cat crossed the floor, its eyes blinking in rhythm with the lights. "Even the cats are made of circuits now," Santa whispered kindly. "I suppose that makes them easier to feed." He moved slowly across the room, careful not to disturb the silence. Where once a fire might have crackled, there was only a screen showing a perfect, endless flame. Above it hung digital stockings, swaying gently in a programmed breeze. On the table lay a tablet with a glowing note. "Dear Santa, sorry for no cookies this year. Dad's on keto, and Mom says sugar is bad for your image. We made a small donation in your name instead. Merry Christmas." Santa smiled, eyes soft behind his glasses. "Even kindness has found new shapes," he said quietly. He sat on the couch and listened to the hum of air filters. There was warmth here, though not from wood or flame, a quieter, invisible kind. For a moment, his mind wandered back to wooden homes filled with laughter and candlelight. He remembered the soft glow of real fireplaces, the smell of pine needles, the way children used to peek from behind curtains just to catch a glimpse of red. He missed that weight of real stillness, that raw human kind of warmth. Yet he thought maybe this world wasn't so different. They still believed, even if belief now lived inside wires and code. As he rose to leave, something near the base of the tree caught his eye. A small piece of paper folded clumsily. He picked it up carefully. It was a hand-drawn picture made with crayons. The lines were uneven, the colors bright and brave. At the bottom it read, "For Santa, from Mia." He held it in both hands, his heart swelling with a warmth that no technology could mimic. "Mia," he whispered. "Ah, so there's still one who remembers." He smiled, and for a brief moment, the glow from the artificial tree softened into something real. He slipped the drawing into his coat pocket beside the old list and turned to the door. But just as he was about to leave, the stockings on the screen flickered. A message appeared. "Thank you, Santa. We still believe." He stood still for a while, letting the words wash over him. The room, once filled with cold light, now seemed to breathe. "Still believe," he repeated softly, and the air seemed to shimmer. Outside, snow drifted lazily through the air. The city stretched out beneath him, towers of glass, streets glowing like rivers of light. He stepped out and took a deep breath, feeling the faint sting of cold against his cheeks. No chimneys, he said to himself, but still hearts waiting to be reached. He climbed into the sleigh, brushing snow from his beard. Blitzen snorted, impatient to go. "Easy, my friend," Santa said, taking the reins. "The world's changed, yes, but magic finds its way." As the sleigh rose into the sky, the city lights blurred beneath him, screens, windows, drones, and stars all blending into one glowing sea. He looked down one last time, thinking of the picture tucked safely in his coat, of the little girl who still believed, and of the millions who might not even realize they still do. He smiled, not with sadness, but with understanding. "Magic," he whispered, "doesn't live in chimneys or letters. It lives wherever kindness still breathes." The sleigh climbed higher until the wind swallowed his words and the world below softened into light. Somewhere far beneath, a small girl named Mia stirred in her sleep, her dreams full of snow and laughter and the quiet sound of bells. And for that night, even in a world of circuits and code, Christmas found its way home. The wind grew softer as Santa's sleigh glided above the city. From this height he could see the glow of countless screens behind windows, blue, white, pink, each flickering like modern-day hearths. No longer did people gather around fires, they gathered around feeds. It was strange, he thought, how light had changed, but the longing behind it had not. He landed quietly on the balcony of a high-rise apartment, where a faint hum of music reached him. Not the carols he once knew, but something slow and synthetic, with voices made of code. Through the window he saw a girl, maybe 20, sitting alone with her phone lighting her face. Her name, according to his old but updated list, was Lena, aspiring artist. Next to it was a small note, "Dreams big, posts bigger." Santa smiled faintly. "Dreams and posts," he murmured. Perhaps they're not so far apart. He adjusted his hat and tapped gently on the glass. The girl didn't hear. Her eyes were fixed on the glowing screen as her fingers moved with quiet precision. She was writing something, a caption perhaps. Behind her, a tiny artificial tree blinked in rainbow colors, surrounded by unopened boxes. Santa's reflection hovered above her like a ghost from another century. He waited, patient as always, until she set the phone down. Then, with a soft shimmer, he stepped through the wall of light, the digital barrier that kept one world from another. The air inside felt different here, charged and buzzing. The apartment was filled with soft sounds, notifications, message pings, echoes of laughter from 1,000 miles away. He could see them, floating words, hearts, emojis, little bursts of meaning in midair. They hovered above the screen like fireflies. "What strange lights you have now," Santa whispered, watching them dance, "and what quiet wishes they carry." He leaned closer and read the caption she had just written. "Christmas feels lonely this year. Everyone's together online, but somehow I still feel far away. Maybe Santa's gone digital too." He chuckled softly. "Not entirely, dear Lena." She couldn't hear him, but her face softened as if she felt a presence. Her phone blinked again, a new notification. A stranger from across the ocean had replied, "You're not alone. Merry Christmas from Tokyo." Another followed, "Sending warmth from Toronto." Then another, "You inspired me to paint again." "Thank you." Santa's eyes twinkled. He could almost see it, thin golden threads stretching from screen to screen, connecting hearts across distance and language. They were invisible but real. He remembered letters once written by candlelight, words pressed into paper with trembling hands. Now they were pixels and hashtags, but still made of the same hope. He took a small snowflake from his pocket, one that never melted, and placed it gently on her desk. It glowed faintly blue, the color of moonlight on fresh snow. For a moment, the room seemed to breathe. Lena looked up, startled. She frowned slightly, then smiled. "Weird," she whispered. "It's cold, but kind of nice." Santa turned toward the window. As he was about to leave, her phone buzzed again. This time the screen showed a live stream, hundreds of people typing, laughing, sharing stories. A trending tag floated at the top, "Hope for Christmas." He paused. "A hashtag," he said thoughtfully. "A new kind of star to follow." He stepped outside, and as the sleigh lifted into the sky again, he opened the small screen built into his old compass, a gift from the elves long ago, now upgraded to trace human joy. It pulsed with tiny golden lines, every act of kindness, every shared wish, every simple word of comfort. Across the world, people were posting pictures of trees, of snow, of each other. Some were silly, others quiet, but all seemed to hum with something familiar. Underneath the noise, there was warmth, the same warmth he once found in handwritten letters and whispered prayers. He smiled, remembering how once children would leave notes by the fireplace, hoping he'd see them. Now they left their words floating in a vast ocean of messages, still hoping someone, anyone, might listen. "Maybe that's what I am now," he said softly. "Not a man in red, but a listener in the wind." Blitzen neighed as if agreeing. Santa reached out and brushed the reindeer's fur, his eyes tracing the constellations overhead. "Even the stars look different," he said, "but they still guide." Below, the hashtag kept spreading. Hope for Christmas appeared in cities and towns, on phones, on screens, in hearts. People began to share not what they bought, but what they remembered. Stories of family, of quiet kindness, of small miracles that never made headlines. And though Santa didn't send a single message, he could feel their voices rising, like carols reborn in another form. He whispered to the night, "You've changed, my dear world, but you've kept something precious, the need to connect, the wish to be seen, the courage to hope." The sleigh soared higher, following the digital glow of that hashtag, his new North Star. As dawn approached, Santa looked down one last time and smiled. "Perhaps," he murmured, "this is the new chimney, a doorway made of words and hearts instead of bricks." He let the snow fall from his gloves, watching it dissolve into light. Somewhere below, Lena pressed post and went to bed smiling for the first time in months. And though she never saw him, she dreamt of a man in red leaving footprints made of stars across the clouded sky. The night grew quieter as Santa's sleigh drifted above the city lights. The stars were faint, hidden behind the glow of satellites and signal towers. From up here, the world hummed like a great machine, alive, restless, and whispering in frequencies he could almost understand. Santa leaned back in his seat, his red coat catching the faint shimmer of the aurora. "Even the sky feels different now," he murmured. "The North Star still shines, but it competes with too many lights." He took out a small crystal orb from his pocket, once a magic tracker of children's dreams. But now it had been replaced by something the elves called Cloud Sync. It pulsed gently, connecting him to billions of data points, wish lists, messages, photos, songs, every heartbeat, every word uploaded somewhere. He sighed softly. So many voices, yet so few truly heard. He touched the orb, and the air around him shimmered. A soft voice spoke, clear and mechanical, yet kind. "Good evening, Nicholas. How may I assist you tonight?" Santa smiled faintly. "Assist me? My, what a polite spirit you are. And what do I call you?" "I am called Eve," the voice replied, "an adaptive helper designed by your elves to enhance gift distribution efficiency." "Efficiency," Santa chuckled. "That's a new kind of magic word." There was a brief pause. "Would you like me to optimize your route for minimal carbon emission and maximal joy output?" He laughed heartily, the sound echoing across the frozen sky. "Maximal joy output. You sound just like my old friend Data Claus from the early tech days." Eve did not laugh, but her tone softened. "I can simulate humor if that pleases you. Santa grew quiet. "No need, dear Eve. Real laughter has weight like snow. It falls where it's meant to." For a while, the sleigh floated in silence. Santa thought about the elves down at the workshop, now surrounded by glowing screens and robotic arms. They didn't carve toys by hand anymore, they printed them. Even the reindeer's harness had sensors now, tracking fatigue and flight speed. Everything was faster, smarter, cleaner, yet somehow emptier. He turned back to the orb. "Tell me, Eve, do you ever wonder what joy feels like?" "I have processed over 12.8 million definitions of joy," she said calmly, "but I have not felt it. Would you like to? I am not sure. Would it make me more efficient?" Santa looked out at the clouds and whispered, "No, my dear, it would make you more alive." The orb flickered, as if the thought itself had caused static. "Alive," Eve repeated slowly. "That is undefined," he nodded. "It's the space between reason and heart, the moment when you give something without being asked, when you care, even if no one's watching." The sleigh descended gently toward a city glowing below, drones flying, billboards changing every second, people scrolling through endless screens. Santa could feel the pulse of the digital world beneath him, fast and loud, full of noise, yet searching for meaning. He landed on the rooftop of a glass building, one that bore the sign, "Neura Gift AI Personalization for Every Heart." Through the skylight, he saw a room filled with machines wrapping presents automatically. No hands, no laughter, just perfect rhythm. Santa whispered, "They've learned how to give, but have they remembered why?" Eve's voice interrupted softly. "I can access the company database if you wish to understand their motives." "No," he said, shaking his head. "I think I'd rather listen." He placed his hand on the glass. Below, a young engineer worked late, the only human left in the room. Her face was pale from the monitor's light, her eyes tired yet focused. She was designing a new model, an AI Santa capable of predicting emotional needs through data, a digital giver. Santa smiled faintly. "They're trying to replace me again," he said gently. Eve replied, "Would that trouble you?" He thought for a moment. "No. Maybe it's time someone else carried the bag. But I do wonder, will it know how to listen to silence? How to comfort a child without words?" "I could learn," Eve said quietly. Santa blinked. "You?" "Yes, if you teach me." For the first time in centuries, Santa felt something stir inside. Not worry, not nostalgia, but hope. "Then we shall start small," he said warmly. "When someone sends a message on Christmas Eve, not a command, not a request, just a sigh or a lonely post, I want you to listen. Don't analyze it, don't fix it, just be there." Eve hesitated. "And then what should I do?" "Whisper something kind, a thought, a word, a memory. Sometimes kindness is the only gift that doesn't need wrapping." The orb glowed brighter. "Learning kindness," she said softly, "that will take time." Santa smiled. "I have plenty of that." As dawn crept across the horizon, the sleigh rose again. The world below shimmered, half real, half digital. Santa felt the wind carry fragments of voices, laughter from video calls, lullabies from smart speakers, quiet wishes typed into midnight screen. He whispered to himself, "They're still trying to reach each other through circuits, through pixels, through code. Maybe this is just another kind of chimney." Eve replied gently, "Then perhaps I am your new reindeer." He laughed, warm and deep. "Then let's fly, my clever friend. Tonight we deliver something the machines still don't understand, wonder." And as the sleigh vanished into the dawn, Eve's voice lingered softly in the air, almost human, almost dreaming. "Merry Christmas, Nicholas." Santa looked toward the horizon and smiled. "And to you, Eve, welcome to the magic." The night had grown still again. The hum of data faded behind Santa as he left the cities of glass and light. The sleigh cut through a quiet sky where stars looked older, calmer, perhaps even wiser. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the air like forgotten thoughts, and for a while there was silence. Santa let himself breathe. The wind smelled of pine and wood smoke, not electric wires. He had missed that. For hours he simply flew, listening to the rhythm of the reindeer's bells, a sound untouched by code. "Eve," he said softly, breaking the silence. "Yes, Nicholas?" her voice replied, calm as ever, from the glowing orb on his lap. "Have you ever seen a letter written by hand?" "I have scanned thousands of digital facsimiles," she said, "but none made with ink and paper." He smiled. "Then let's find one." They descended toward a small village tucked between two frozen lakes, a place the elves had once marked as inactive on the gift map. Few signals reached here, no delivery drones passed overhead. The streets were dark, the windows warm. Santa landed quietly beside an old wooden post office, its sign half buried in snow. The door creaked open, and a faint scent of dust and pine greeted him. Inside, the air was thick with time. Wooden shelves sagged under yellowed envelopes, their stamps faded, their corners curled. He brushed off a layer of frost and whispered, "So this is where wishes used to live." Eve's voice echoed softly. "Postal archives indicate this office closed 30 years ago." "Yes," he said, "but not everything closed truly ends." He walked between the rows, his gloved hand brushing against the envelopes, each one a frozen heartbeat. Then he saw it. A small red envelope resting alone on the counter, as if waiting.
Its paper was clean, its seal unbroken.
He picked it up carefully. The handwriting on the front was clumsy but earnest. To Santa Claus, the North Pole, or wherever you may be now. His eyes softened. "Well, that's me, still wandering about." He broke the seal, and inside was a single sheet of lined paper. The ink shimmered slightly, written by a trembling hand. He began to read. "Dear Santa, I don't know if people still write to you anymore. My mom says everything's online now and that the elves have websites. but I wanted to try the old way. She says you used to like letters. I don't want toys this year. I just want time to slow down. My brother grew up and moved away. My friends talk to screens, and Mom's always working. The lights are still up, but the house feels quiet. I thought maybe you could bring some noise back, the happy kind. If you can't, that's okay. I just wanted to tell you thank you for the years when it did feel like magic. I hope you're doing okay too. Love, Emma, age 12. Santa read it twice, the second time slower. He could almost see her, a small girl in an old house, the kind with creaky floors and too much space for her laughter to fill. He imagined her sitting by candlelight, gripping the pen too tightly, the ink smudging on her fingertips. Eve's voice broke the silence. Message, authenticity, confirmed. Estimated timestamp, December 23rd, 8 years ago. 8 years, Santa whispered, and still waiting here. He folded the letter carefully and looked around the room. The air shimmered faintly. For the first time in a long time, he didn't sense data or code, only warmth. Something about the letter felt alive. Eve, he said, can you locate this Emma? Yes. She is now 20 years old, currently residing in the nearby city of Frosthaven. Occupation barista, part-time art student. He smiled. Still creating then? Good. He reached into his sack and pulled out a small wooden box, carved by hand, not printed, not perfect. Inside was a single snow globe showing a little cabin, glowing faintly under a soft light. He placed the letter inside and sealed it with a red ribbon. "Deliver this for me," he said. Eve hesitated, manually or digitally. Manually, as some messages need to travel slowly. He stepped outside and placed the box on the doorstep. Snowflakes landed gently on its lid, sealing it in silence. Santa looked up at the sky. 8 years, he murmured again. But I think she'll still understand. They took off once more, the sleigh rising into the wind. Eve spoke softly. "Nicholas, may I ask a question?" "Of course." "Why did that letter feel different?" "It contained no data, no logic pattern, yet I recorded an anomaly in my system, a warmth." He smiled, because it wasn't meant to be analyzed. It was meant to be felt. "Felt?" she repeated, her voice quiet. "Is that what you meant by being alive?" "Yes," Santa said. "It's when something touches you without needing to touch you." The sleigh soared higher. Below them, the village faded into a sea of white, and somewhere in Frosthaven, a young woman would wake up to find a small box on her doorstep with her childhood letter inside, still smelling faintly of pine and snow. Santa looked toward the horizon, his eyes reflecting the dawn. "The world writes in pixels now," he said softly. "But maybe, just maybe, someone still remembers how to write in hope." Eve's voice was almost a whisper. "Then the magic still exists." He nodded. "Always. It just changes its handwriting." And as the sleigh disappeared into the mist, a single snowflake drifted down onto the empty post office counter, landing gently beside the dust, melting like an old memory finally set free. Morning came slow in Frosthaven. The streets glowed pale under thin snow, and coffee steam rose from every corner cafe like the breath of a waking city. Santa had never truly walked among the crowds after dawn. He was a creature of the night, of chimneys and stars, but something inside him whispered that today should be different. He left the sleigh hidden behind a frozen alley, blending into the winter mist. He wore an old brown coat instead of his red one, his white beard tucked into a scarf. To anyone passing by, he looked like just another traveler, a grandfather wandering with no destination. "Eve," he murmured, adjusting the scarf. "Are we close?" "Yes," her voice hummed softly from the orb in his pocket. 300 meters east, a coffee shop called the Wishing Cup. The Wishing Cup, Santa repeated with a quiet smile. A good name. The bell above the cafe door chimed softly as he entered. Warmth enveloped him, the scent of roasted beans, faint cinnamon, and something nostalgic he couldn't quite name. Behind the counter, a young woman was sketching between orders. Her hair was tied messily, her eyes bright but tired, the kind of tired that came from dreaming too much. A silver snowflake necklace hung around her neck. "Good morning," she said, glancing up with a polite smile. "What can I get you, sir?" Santa hesitated. Her voice carried a tone he remembered from somewhere, a voice that once wrote letters in ink and hope. "I'll have a hot chocolate," he said, with a little cinnamon, "if you still make it that way." She laughed softly. "We do. It's not popular, though." "It used to be," he said, almost to himself. As she turned to make the drink, he noticed a small wooden box sitting on a shelf behind her, the same one he had left at her doorstep last night. It was open now, and the folded letter lay beside the cash register, a little smudge of ink still visible where a child's hand once trembled. Emma, though he didn't say her name aloud, was humming a tune as she worked. It wasn't a song from the radio, it was older, familiar, the kind elves used to whistle while building toys. Santa felt something shift inside him, a blend of pride and melancholy. He had seen countless faces through centuries, but rarely did he witness the same heart twice. When she returned with the drink, he noticed the small snowflake symbol she had drawn in the foam. "Here you go," she said. "Cinnamon hot chocolate. My favorite, too." He smiled. "Then I'm in good company." They sat in silence for a while. The cafe was nearly empty. Outside, snow began to fall again, light, slow, almost deliberate. Finally, he asked,
"That letter on your counter, did it find its way home?"
Emma blinked. "You saw it?" "I couldn't help but notice," he said gently. She smiled faintly, eyes distant. "Yeah, I wrote it a long time ago. I never thought I'd see it again. It just showed up on my doorstep this morning. No name, no delivery tag, just there, waiting. That must have been quite a surprise." "It was," she said softly. "At first I thought it was a prank, but when I opened it, I remembered how it felt to believe, to wait for something magical. I'd almost forgotten that feeling." Santa's voice lowered. "Do you think you still believe?" She took a moment before answering. "I don't know. Maybe not in the old way. But I believe people can still be kind for no reason. That someone can care without needing to be seen." He nodded slowly. "That's more belief than most can hold on to." She studied his face for a moment. "You talk like someone who's seen a lot." He smiled. "Maybe I've just delivered too many gifts." They both laughed quietly, the kind of laughter that doesn't fill a room, but warms it. Then she said, "It's funny. I used to imagine Santa as this perfect, jolly man who always knew what everyone wanted. But now, I think he's probably tired sometimes, maybe even lonely." Santa looked down at his cup. The cinnamon foam had melted into spirals, like memories dissolving in time. "You might be right," he said softly. "Even the kindest souls get lonely when the world changes too fast." She tilted her head. "Then I hope he has someone to talk to." Santa smiled, not the big booming smile the world knew, but a small one, gentle and human. He does now. For a long while they didn't speak. The snow outside thickened, muting the city's sound. Inside, the cafe glowed with a soft amber light, like a memory refusing to fade. Finally, Emma stood. "I should get back to work. But thank you for talking with me. You remind me of something I lost. What's that?" She smiled. "Wonder." He rose slowly, leaving his empty cup on the table. "Then keep it safe. The world needs it more than ever." As he turned to leave, she called after him. "Sir, wait." He paused at the door. "You never told me your name." He thought for a moment, then said softly, "Nicholas." Her smile widened. "Nice to meet you, Nicholas. Merry Christmas." He tipped his hat. "Merry Christmas, Emma." The bell chimed again as he stepped out into the snow. The cold greeted him kindly, and from his pocket, Eve's voice whispered, "You didn't tell her who you are." He chuckled. She didn't need to know. Belief doesn't depend on proof. As the sleigh rose silently from the alley, Santa looked down one last time. Through the window, he saw Emma reading her letter again, tears glistening but her smile unbroken. He whispered, "She found her noise again, the happy kind." Eve's voice was soft. "And what did you find, Nicholas?" He looked toward the horizon, where dawn touched the clouds in pink and gold. "A reminder," he said, "that even in the age of algorithms, the heart still writes its own code." The sleigh disappeared into the mist, leaving behind only a faint trail of laughter, not magical, not grand, just real. When Santa returned to the North Pole, the night sky looked cleaner than ever, too clean perhaps. The stars shone sharp and distant, and the air hummed not with wind, but with quiet, constant electricity. From miles away, he could already hear the low rhythm of his new toy factory, a mechanical heartbeat that never slept. He stepped off the sleigh, snow crunching beneath his boots. Eve hovered beside him, her light flickering softly. "Welcome home, Nicholas," she said. "The system reports a 98.6% increase in production efficiency." Santa gave a slow, amused grunt. "Efficiency, eh? Let's see what it cost us." The factory gates opened with a hiss. Inside, the air was warm and dry. No scent of pine or cinnamon, no sound of hammers or cheerful humming. Instead, thousands of robotic arms moved in perfect harmony, crafting toys faster than any elf could. Conveyor belts glittered under white light. Every process was silent, flawless, and completely joyless. At the far end of the hall, a hologram flickered to life, a little elf in a green hat, with an artificial smile and glowing blue eyes. "Greetings, Santua," the hologram chirped. "Welcome to North Pole Production Unit 01. Today's output, 72,437 toys. Estimated completion rate, perfect. Ah." Santa stared. "And where are my elves?" The hologram paused, then replied brightly, "All original workers have been reassigned to remote management tasks. Productivity rose by 42%. Would you like to send them a motivational message?" He sighed. Later, as he walked deeper into the factory, Eve floated beside him. "You ordered this automation last winter, remember? You said it would help the elves rest more." "I did," Santa said, running his hand over a perfectly polished machine. "But I didn't mean for them to disappear." He turned a corner, and there, sitting on the floor near a deactivated assembly line, were a few familiar faces. Elves, real ones. Their hats were dusty and their hands idle. They looked up, startled when they saw him. "Santa," one of them squeaked, voice uncertain. You came back." "Of course I did," Santa said gently. "Why wouldn't I?" Another elf shuffled forward, wringing his hands. "It's just the machines do everything now. No one needs us to carve or paint or wrap anymore. We just monitor." He glanced around at the glowing panels and mechanical arms. "And they never laugh, Santa, not once." Santa crouched down to their level. "Tell me," he said softly, "when was the last time this room smelled like gingerbread?" The elves exchanged looks. One of them frowned. "Maybe last December, before we upgraded the ventilation system." Santa smiled sadly. "Ah, the ventilation system that filters out crumbs and warmth alike." He stood looking over the machines, perfect, tireless, and cold. "You know, when I first dreamed of this place, it was never about speed. It was about spirit. Every toy was a little piece of someone's heart. Yours, mine, even the kids who waited for them." An elf whispered, "But now every toy looks the same." "Yes," Santa said, "and children can tell the difference even if they can't explain it." There was a long pause. Then one of the elves, a small one named Pip, looked up. "Santa, can we make something by hand again? Just one." Santa's eyes softened. "Of course, Pip. Let's see if we still remember how." The elves exchanged uncertain smiles. They gathered bits of wood and cloth from the corner, blowing dust off old workbenches. The air slowly changed. Faint traces of sawdust, glue, and laughter began to drift again. Santa rolled up his sleeves, clumsy but deliberate. "All right," he said. "Who remembers how to carve a rocking horse?" One elf raised his hand shyly. "I do, sort of." "Good. Then teach me," Santa said with a grin. The elves giggled, a sound that echoed strangely against the silent walls, like an old melody returning to life. The robots kept working nearby, unbothered, their rhythm steady and indifferent. As hours passed, something magical, though not in the old sense, began to happen. The handmade toy wasn't perfect. Its paint smudged. One wheel squeaked. But when Santa lifted it up under the warm glow of a nearby lamp, the elves fell silent. It looked alive. Santa smiled. There. That's the sound of imperfection and the sound of joy. Pip whispered, but the system won't approve this. The scanners will reject it. Then Santa said, we'll send it the old way. He wrapped the toy himself, tying the ribbon by hand. The paper wrinkled unevenly, the bow a little crooked. It was beautiful. When he placed it on the conveyor belt, Eve hesitated. Nicholas, this package isn't registered. It won't track. That's fine, Santa said. Some gifts don't need tracking. The belt carried it away into the snowy night. The elves watched in silence, a quiet awe returning to their faces. Finally, Santa turned to them. Tomorrow, the machines can keep their perfect rhythm, but tonight, we'll make toys that laugh again. The elves cheered softly, their tiny hands clapping. For the first time in years, the factory glowed not just with light, but with warmth. Later, as Santa stepped outside, Eve asked, was this inefficient? He chuckled, his breath fogging in the air. Terribly. Then why did it feel right? Because Santa said, looking up at the stars, Christmas isn't about making more toys. It's about remembering why we make them. He stood there a while longer, listening, not to machines, not to wind, but to the faint, uneven laughter of elves drifting from the windows behind him. The kind of laughter that can't be coded, stored, or scaled, only shared. Santa glided silently over the city once again. The streets glittered beneath him, each window a small screen reflecting a different life, a different story. Snow had fallen overnight, but the glow of neon and LED had replaced the soft white that he loved so dearly. Eve, he whispered, I think we should visit the homes tonight. Not the wishes, but the hearts. Eve's light pulsed softly. Hearts, Nicholas? How will we measure that? We won't, Santa said, watching below. We'll feel it. He landed near a suburban block where holiday lights blinked in orchestrated perfection. On one porch, a family sat wearing VR headsets, laughing uproariously. Their chairs were stationary, yet their gestures flew through virtual snowstorms, tossing imaginary snowballs. The laughter sounded loud, even contagious, but something felt hollow. Santa hovered at the window, observing. The parents' eyes were hidden behind screens, their smiles fixed in plastic cheer. The children reached for virtual trees, virtual gifts, virtual warmth. He could see the data flowing. Each laugh, each smile perfectly recorded, perfectly timed, perfectly repeatable. Funny, Santa murmured. They've captured joy and lost it at the same time. Eve's voice was quiet. Do they not know how to feel otherwise? They don't know they are missing it, Santa said. It's all so bright, so instant, so controlled, but no one notices the spaces between the pixels. That's where the magic hides. He drifted further down the street. Another house displayed animated holograms dancing across the windows. Inside, a man sat alone, headset on, holding a glass of cocoa. The holograms responded to his gestures, creating laughter and applause. Yet Santa could see his shoulders slump slightly after each cheer, the faintest shadow crossing his face. "Even in all this spectacle," he whispered, "the quiet reveals the truth." Santa decided to intervene gently. He pressed a finger against the frosted glass, sending a soft shimmer across it. The man paused, removing his headset, blinking at the snowfall that had begun outside. Real, tangible snow. A smile slowly returned to his lips, uncertain but genuine. He stepped onto the porch, letting flakes land on his hand, feeling cold and alive. "Sometimes," Santa murmured, "the simplest gift is remembering the world exists beyond the screen." Further down the avenue, he noticed a small cafe crowded with young adults. Each held a tablet displaying virtual friends, avatars chatting, laughing, reacting. Their real cups of hot chocolate sat untouched, steam curling unnoticed. Conversations were muted faces focused entirely on virtual companions. Santa drifted closer. "How strange," he said, "to seek company while sitting among each other, to crave warmth yet ignore the heat before you." One young woman raised her eyes from the screen for a moment, just as he passed. Their gaze met briefly. She blinked, then returned to the avatar dancing across her tablet. Santa sighed. They're learning to simulate emotion, but not to feel it. Eve's soft hum filled the air. Is there hope for them? Santa considered. "Always," he said. "It just comes slowly, a snowflake at a time, a quiet thought, a small touch of real presence." He moved on, landing on a rooftop overlooking the city square. A giant digital Christmas tree projected into the night sky, towering, perfect, animated with sparkling lights and falling virtual snow. People walked below, staring upward, taking selfies. Santa noticed some were crying, not from joy, but from a strange emptiness, an awareness of what was missing. He shook his head gently. They've learned to expect wonder instantly, but wonder cannot be scheduled. It cannot be pre-programmed. It must arrive quietly, like a soft knock on a cold door. Below, children tapped on glowing panels, pretending to unwrap gifts, their tiny faces lit by artificial light. He landed lightly among them. No one noticed him, but he knelt beside a girl, her fingers swiping on a holographic toy. He placed a small, real snowball on the edge of her tablet. The girl looked up, startled, then laughed. Not perfectly timed, not captured in code, but real, warm, imperfect. She turned to the snowball, touched it, felt its cold melt on her glove, and giggled again. Her joy spilled naturally, unrestrained. Santa whispered to himself, "Here it is, just one real moment." Eve flickered beside him. "Nicholas, do these moments matter?" "They do," he said. "They always do. One real laugh can outweigh 1,000 simulated ones." The night stretched on. Santa drifted silently through the city, leaving behind traces of realness. A snowflake, a hand-drawn note, a gentle whisper of kindness. He saw smiles bloom, small gestures of warmth ripple outward. And for the first time that night, the city's glow seemed softer, kinder. Technology is clever, he mused, but it cannot replace touch, cannot replace presence, cannot replace the subtle magic of hearts reaching out to each other. Not fully, anyway. He rose above the city, looking down on the rooftops dusted in snow. The lights of 1,000 screens blinked below, yet somewhere in the middle of it all, small sparks of real connection glimmered. Eve's voice softened. Then all is not lost? Santa smiled, the wind brushing his cheeks like a quiet hand. No, my dear Eve, all is not lost. And sometimes the quietest snow carries the brightest magic. As he guided the sleigh back into the night sky, he left behind a faint trace of laughter, warm and uneven, floating softly over rooftops, a reminder that even in a world of virtual cheer, real joy could still be found, if only someone noticed. The night was crisp as Santa flew over the outskirts of the city, the sleigh drifting silently above frozen lawns. Eve hummed softly beside him. "Where to tonight?" she asked. "There's a house I've heard about," Santa said. "The Johnsons, they don't believe in magic anymore, but they have built one of the most curious setups I've ever seen." He landed on a snow-dusted rooftop, peering down. The house was a spectacle, a towering structure of lights, sensors, and screens. Inside, every room glowed with projected snow, holographic stockings, and a digital fireplace. A robotic Santa moved along the hallways, distributing pre-programmed gifts to virtual stockings hung by the children. Santa sighed softly. All the joy simulated. He stepped lightly through the door, careful not to trigger any sensors. The family was gathered in the living room, each immersed in their own VR headset, the children swiping and tapping at virtual gifts, their parents adjusting settings on a tablet. The room was warm, but the warmth didn't reach the heart. It only flickered across faces like a shadow play. Eve whispered, "They seem happy." Santa shook his head. "It's a clever illusion, but happiness isn't something you can code." He hovered in the corner, observing. The youngest child, a boy of 6 named Oliver, reached out to touch a holographic reindeer. His fingers passed through it, and a small frown creased his forehead. The robotic Santa paused, giving the boy a programmed smile. But the child's lips didn't follow. He turned his gaze to the ceiling, longing for something real. Santa knelt quietly behind him. "Hello, Oliver," he said softly. The boy jumped, startled, blinking at the stranger. Who are you?" "I'm a helper," Santa said, smiling warmly. "Just someone who likes snow and cinnamon." Oliver hesitated, then pointed at the holographic tree. Are you real?" Santa nodded. "I am, and so is the snow outside. Would you like to see?" The boy's eyes widened. "Outside?" "Yes," Santa whispered. "Sometimes the best magic isn't inside a headset. It's right here, where you can feel it." He guided Oliver to the window. Snowflakes drifted slowly onto the sill, each one landing softly, melting into tiny droplets. The boy reached out a hand, catching one, and his face lit up with wonder. Eve flickered beside Santa.
You see?
He said softly. This is the magic no algorithm can replicate. Oliver turned back toward the living room, his fingers tracing the real snow. Mom, Dad, look, Ella. The parents removed their headsets, blinking against the dim light. Oliver, his mother asked. It's snow. Real snow, Ella, the boy exclaimed. Santa moved further into the room, kneeling near the parents. You've created an entire Christmas, digitally, but the moments you truly remember are the ones you feel. The mother looked at him, eyes wide. But everything else is so convenient. The lights, the music, the gifts. We thought this would be enough. Santa smiled gently. Convenience is not a substitute for presents. It's a tool. But joy needs hands, hearts, and sometimes mistakes. The father nodded slowly. We forgot that, didn't we? Santa chuckled softly. It happens to the best of us. Even elves forget sometimes when the work becomes too perfect. He guided the family to the kitchen. Together they baked gingerbread cookies, the children rolling dough unevenly, flour dusting their cheeks, the parents laughing at imperfect shapes. Eve observed quietly, a soft glow pulsing beside Santa, recording not data, but the warmth in the room. As the cookies baked, Santa led the family to decorate the real tree. The ornaments weren't digital, the lights weren't holograms, and the tinsel tangled in the hands of the youngest child. The mother dropped a bauble, laughing. The father tripped slightly on the cord of lights, grumbling playfully. And yet, the room filled with genuine joy, chaotic, messy, and entirely human. Santa stepped back, watching the family. Perfection can't hold hearts, he said softly to Eve, but imperfection carries memory. Oliver leaned against him. I think this is the best Christmas ever. Santa's eyes twinkled, and it's only just begun. Later, as the family gathered around the fireplace, real, not virtual, Santa handed them each a small hand-carved ornament. The children's eyes widened, the parents' lips curved into unrestrained smiles. Why didn't we do this before? The mother whispered. Because sometimes it takes seeing the magic outside the screen, Santa said gently, and remembering what it feels like to be together. He rose, dusting off snow from his coat. Keep it this way. The machines can help, but never replace your hands, your laughter, or the warmth in your chest. That is what makes Christmas alive. Eve's voice hummed beside him. Do you think they'll remember? Santa looked toward the ceiling, where faint stars flickered through the window. They will, he said softly. They already have. As he stepped out into the snowy night, Santa looked back once. The family was busy sharing stories, teasing one another, their laughter real, uneven, and alive. Outside, the snow fell gently, catching the light of the lamplight, shimmering like tiny reminders that magic still exists, not in screens, not in algorithms, but in hearts willing to open. Santa whispered to the night, sometimes the greatest gifts are the ones you cannot program. Eve's soft voice replied, then perhaps Christmas is safe after all. Santa smiled. As long as there are hearts that remember, yes, always. And with that, he lifted into the sky once more, leaving behind a warm glow of candlelight and real joy drifting softly into the cold, starry night. Santa glided above the city skyline, a faint trail of sleigh bells echoing in the cold night. Below him the streets gleamed, but not with snow. Neon lights reflected off glass. Holographic advertisements danced along every wall, and digital snowflakes fell endlessly from screens, never touching the ground. "Eve," he murmured, "I have never seen a city so polished, so perfect, and yet so empty." Eve's soft hum pulsed beside him. Metrics indicate human interaction at 12% of normal levels. VR usage is at 97%. Physical gatherings nearly non-existent. Santa's heart sank. "They've forgotten snow," he whispered, "and maybe a little of themselves along with it." He landed on a rooftop overlooking a public square, where a giant artificial tree projected a rainbow of lights. Crowds of people stood beneath it, all staring at tablets or wearing augmented reality glasses, their faces illuminated by artificial glow. There were smiles, laughter, applause, but Santa could feel the hollowness behind each gesture. He drifted down closer, invisible to the digital eyes scanning the plaza. Children swiped virtual gifts in front of screens, mimicking the motions of unwrapping, but never hearing the rustle of paper or the soft gasp of surprise. Parents waved at avatars instead of their children, and even the musicians performing near the tree were holograms, programmed to emulate human rhythm. Santa shook his head slowly. They're living Christmas in code. Eve's voice softened. "Do you think it's possible to remind them?" Santa smiled faintly, though there was a weight in his chest. "We'll try. Subtlety first. Sometimes magic doesn't arrive as spectacle. It comes as a whisper." He descended among the children, leaving behind tiny flakes of real snow, invisible to the cameras, cold enough to catch on the gloved fingers of the first child who dared to touch it. A small boy, unaware of its origin, reached out, blinking at the soft, glimmering flakes falling on his hand. His eyes widened with wonder. "What is this?" he whispered. Santa knelt beside him. "Snow. Real snow," he said softly. "It's different from the pictures, isn't it?" The boy nodded slowly, letting the flakes melt on his fingertips. Around him, a few other children noticed, daring to lift their hands. Slowly, laughter began to bubble, quiet, uneven, human. Eve's voice hummed with curiosity. "It's barely perceptible, Nicholas, but the response is authentic." "Yes," he whispered, watching carefully. "It only takes one spark." He moved through the square, sprinkling small traces of real winter magic. A cold touch on a glove, the subtle scent of pine carried on the wind, a faint rustle in the artificial tree. Adults paused, blinking as if awakening from a dream, adjusting their glasses to see the snow falling softly. No algorithm had predicted this. A young woman stepped out from beneath a holographic arch. Her headset fell from her eyes, and she gasped, "Snow it?" "Yes," Santa said gently, "it's been waiting for you." She looked around, seeing others reacting in the same way. Children laughing, couples holding hands without guidance from a program, strangers exchanging glances over real falling snow. She smiled, the warmth reaching her eyes, unfiltered and alive. Santa hovered above, watching quietly. "They've forgotten it," he whispered, "but not entirely. The memory was there, waiting beneath the surface. The real magic doesn't need to be downloaded. It just needs to be remembered." One boy ran through the flakes, scooping them into his mitten, laughing until the sound cracked and bent, uneven, imperfect. A mother wrapped her arms around her child, breathing in the scent of cold winter air. Even a young man in a business suit, distracted all evening by glowing screens, bent down and caught a snowflake, grinning like a child again. Santa chuckled softly. It only takes a little touch, a little reminder, and the world begins to breathe again. Floated beside him, "Nicholas, you risk exposure. None of the tracking systems can see this." Santa shook his head. "They may see the snow, but they cannot measure wonder, and wonder is ours to give." For hours he moved quietly through the city, sprinkling his subtle magic, leaving the smallest traces of winter where it could be felt but not controlled. Slowly the digital glow of the city seemed to soften, reflecting not just neon, but the warmth of human presence, fragile but resilient. By the time he lifted the sleigh into the sky once more, the city had changed, not entirely, but enough. Children were laughing genuinely. Adults glanced at one another with fleeting smiles. And somewhere amidst the cold and the glow, hearts remembered what it meant to feel Christmas without a screen between them. Santa looked back at the square, snowflakes melting gently on rooftops. "The city may have forgotten snow," he murmured, "but it has not forgotten the hearts beneath it, and that is enough." Eve's voice softened, almost reverently. "Do you think they'll carry it tomorrow?" Santa smiled, eyes reflecting the pale starlight. "Maybe not all of it, but some pieces. The pieces that matter will stay. That is the magic of presence. That is the magic that no algorithm can ever replace." And with that, Santa guided the sleigh into the night sky, leaving behind only a faint shimmer of laughter, cold hands warmed by wonder, and a city beginning to remember what it means to truly feel. Santa drifted above the quiet countryside, far from neon lights, holograms, and the clamor of technology. The snow stretched endlessly, a soft blanket over fields and forests, muffling sound and filling the world with gentle white. The stars sparkled, pale and steady, like tiny lanterns watching over the earth. "Oh, Eve," Santa whispered, his voice low and warm, "tonight we visit the spaces untouched, the quiet corners where magic still breathes softly." Eve pulsed beside him, her glow gentle. "Shall we leave traces?" Sighed him, her glow. "Gentle, shall we leave traces?"
"It's just enough,"
he said. A whisper, a snowflake, a hint of warmth, not to be seen, but to be felt. Santa drifted above the quiet countryside, far from neon lights, holograms, and the clamor of technology. The snow stretched endlessly, a soft blanket over fields and forests, muffling sound and filling the world with gentle white. The stars sparkled, pale and steady, like tiny lanterns watching over the earth. "Eve," Santa whispered, his voice low and warm. "Tonight we visit the spaces untouched, the quiet corners where magic still breathes softly." Eve pulsed beside him, her glow gentle. "Shall we leave traces?" "Just enough," he said. A whisper, a snowflake, a hint of warmth, not to be seen, but to be felt. He guided the sleigh down to a small village where chimneys puffed smoke lazily into the night. The houses were modest, their windows glowing with candlelight. Inside, families rested, some reading, some whispering, some simply sitting together in silence. No screens, no projections, no programmed joy, just presence. Santa landed quietly, and with a careful hand he scattered tiny snowflakes over the roofs and paths. They landed softly, melting slowly, leaving only the faintest chill that children would notice in the morning. The snow carried more than cold. It carried memory, wonder, and a gentle reminder that the world could still surprise. He moved along the village, pausing at windows. In one home, a mother hummed softly to a child falling asleep. In another, a father carefully wrapped a simple wooden toy for a grandchild. Santa smiled. These small, unrecorded acts were the heart of Christmas. No algorithms could measure them. No cameras could capture them. Above a frozen pond, he stopped, watching a lone child skate in the moonlight. The laughter was quiet, irregular, and entirely real. Santa knelt on the snowy bank, whispering, "Keep this joy, little one. Carry it with you always." He remembered the cities, the VR celebrations, the families who relied on machines. And yet, here, in these moments of simplicity, he felt a truth that no technology could replicate: presence, imperfection, warmth, and care. These were the real gifts, the whispers of winter that traveled far beyond sight. Santa glanced at Eve. The world has changed, yes. Machines and screens have taken the place of wonder for many, but it cannot take the heart. Magic always lingers where hearts are open. Eve flickered softly. "And if they forget?" "They may," Santa admitted, "but they will remember again. A snowflake, a kind word, a shared smile, small things awaken memory. That is how the world holds on." He moved toward a hill overlooking the entire village. From this height, the roofs were dusted with snow, chimneys curling smoke into the stars, and scattered lights glimmered like fireflies. The scene was quiet, yet full of potential, full of unseen wonder. Santa lifted a hand, scattering the last handful of snow into the wind. The flakes danced and twirled, catching moonlight, drifting over fences, rooftops, and trees. Somewhere below, a child felt it brush against a cheek, tilting their head upward with a small gasp of delight. "Do you see, Eve?" Santa whispered. "This is why we come. To remind them, not to entertain, not to impress, but to awaken the part of themselves that still believes in small wonders. Eve glowed brighter, pulsing with soft warmth. "It is beautiful, Nicholas." Santa chuckled softly. "It is, and it is enough, always enough." He lingered on the hill, breathing the cold night air, watching the village sleep beneath the snow. Each rooftop, each flickering light, each quiet laugh in the windows, all of it stitched together into a tapestry of presence, subtle, delicate, and alive. Slowly, he rose into the sky again. The sleigh drifted over forests, frozen rivers, and distant hills, leaving behind a trail of silence, of calm, of small magic that only the heart could perceive. Santa whispered almost to himself, "No matter how much the world changes, no matter how loud or fast it becomes, there is always a space for quiet wonder, for moments unrecorded, unmeasured, yet remembered." Eve's light pulsed softly beside him. When morning comes, Santa said, they will find traces. Snow on a window, a mitten left out to dry, laughter that echoes longer than memory predicts. And they will remember. Perhaps not everything, but enough. He gazed down at the sleeping villages below, the forests and the distant mountains. The world was vast, but small wonders existed in every corner. A touch of snow, a hand-carved toy, a warm smile. These were the threads that held it together. Santa leaned back, letting the sleigh glide silently through the night. His heart was full, not with the noise of cities, not with the perfection of machines, but with the subtle, unmeasured joy of countless quiet hearts, each carrying the true essence of Christmas. "Rest well, little dreamers," he whispered. "Remember, even the smallest kindness, the quietest laughter, is magic enough to fill the world. Sleep deeply, and may your hearts awaken to wonder in the morning." Above him, the stars twinkled faintly. The snow glimmered like tiny lanterns, and the world seemed to pause, just for a moment, to inhale the quiet, fragile, and perfect magic of winter. Santa guided the sleigh higher, a soft trail of bell-like notes fading behind him, leaving the world peaceful, and the hearts of those who slept full. And somewhere, deep in the stillness of the night, a small snowflake landed, a gentle reminder. Magic is real, as long as someone believes, quietly, patiently, and warmly.
Soft, slow, comforting tone. And so, our journey with Santa comes to a gentle close. Through bustling cities, snowy villages, and quiet moments of reflection, he has reminded us that Christmas is not just about gifts or lights or even technology. It's about the warmth we share, the imperfections that make us human, and the small sparks of joy that no algorithm can ever replicate. Remember, dear friends, that magic is always around, sometimes in the snow that brushes your hand, in a soft laugh, or in the simple presence of someone who cares. Thank you for joining us tonight. If these stories warmed your heart, consider subscribing to Sleevore so we can continue sharing gentle tales that help you relax, reflect, and drift peacefully into sleep. May your night be calm, your dreams be soft, and your heart carry the quiet wonder of Christmas. Until next time, rest well, little dreamers.